Hello. Ooh, things have broken here, haven't they? A little bit. Just the tiniest little bit. Kind of. A little. You know. Whatever. While I get this fixed, I'll try and walk and talk, but you're tuning into the Ting Semifinals. I will be solo casting, so I'm going to take away Rifkin's name in a second here. Currently, our first semifinal, which are both best of sevens, by the way, they're doing the vetoes. So it's going to be Solo versus Patience, a ZVP, and then afterwards, going to have Bly versus Björn. There was a little bit of concern that Bly would be unable to play, basically. But it seems like everything's a-okay on his side, and he should be perfectly fine, actually. I think that he's actually been given a computer at the venue of the NSL, so that should be good, as opposed to playing on a crappy laptop with crappy hotel internet. Yep. It's always, much preferred. But I still have to fix this, which doesn't want to be fixed, apparently. So, and then get rid of Rifkin, and then add the thingamajiggers back, the thingamajigs, and the whatchamacallits. Yeah. See, now this is just fat. Why is it so fat? That's a cat. I think he knows he's in the webcam. I think he prefers that, actually. So, don't mind him. He's all Gucci. And we're about to be done. Oh my god, it's the last one. And we're good. Great. Now everything is set up. And I guess maybe I'll add some text instead of him being sick. Which, technically is like, he's not very well either. It's not necessarily true. There we go. Now everything looks pretty. He's pretty. Yeah, as anyone who was sticking around or, tuned in early or whatever you were doing, I suppose, in the hours before this actually went live, you saw that I kind of messed up a command. But if you use the command !data, which is the actual command I meant to make, then you can see that Ting, of course, the sponsors of this huge tournament that's going on for a very long time, we're finally finishing up and wrapping up. Very hype stuff. Has actually reduced their data costs. So if you were originally on the fence because you weren't exactly the biggest data user, but you also did use some data, you weren't entirely on Wi-Fi, then this might help convince you, kind of push you over to actually really consider changing over to Ting. Ting is a mobile phone service company only for the US, unfortunately, but if you are from the US, then definitely check out that link below, btt.ting.com, and get some credit off as well. We also, for the last couple of days, have been promoting the bracket challenge, which I believe is over and done with now as the finals are starting. But if you entered into that and you're from the US, then you could have a chance of being... Well, I think what they're doing is, ideally, there's not going to be any repeats of people who chose the correct winners as well as the correct number of maps, but if there are, I'm actually not sure what they're going to do about that. Maybe they'll just choose randomly, or I don't know, but if you do guess it correctly, then you have a very high chance of getting some really either swag, or a new phone, or a lot of money in Ting credit, a lot of cool stuff. And I think that is going to be... determined, well, obviously after this is actually already all said and done, so at least after tomorrow's matches. And tomorrow is going to be the rest of the final, the third place and the finals, which is going to be a best of 9, by the way, so we're actually going to have some repeat maps, which is always interesting. And then after that, I'm actually casting a show match in USA and France, kind of as a tag on the end right there. And then back to the regular casting schedule of Corsair and the Alima League. But with an added bonus, I'll be going to DreamHack Montreal. And we thought that maybe there wouldn't be any, casting to be done on BaseTradeTV. But we were wrong. BaseTrade is actually going to be the Montreal official second stream. And Apotheosis is first. And Fear Dragon will at least be solo casting that. But maybe Rifkin will come back out of his, well, not retirement, but his forced mini retirement to help co-cast that, which would be pretty cool. But yes, that was me muttering about which map to host first. Apotheosis was the map chosen first by Solar, actually, as this is a best of 7, we'll be playing all 7 maps. Makes sense. And let me go ahead and get a tweet out before we start all these things. First semifinal is live. Solar versus Patience, best of 7. CVP. Go. Wrong link. Not that one. Patience a little rude. Solar tried to say hi, and instead, Patience was like, no more talk. No talk to me. Entirely focused. Alright, good. Nothing's broken in here. Good news, everybody. I only messed up one screen today. Nailed it. But let's get into it. Let's make this tweet. And StarCraft 2 Esports almost nailed it. It is Solar versus Patience first, not Bly versus Beyond. But oh well, whatever. They tried their best. Alright, in the bottom right, as the blue Zerg, he is Solar. In the top left, as the pink Protoss, he is Patience. That alliteration. Amazing. So Patience actually did pretty well recently in the Korean leagues. So I'm actually giving him maybe like the tiniest bit of an edge here. If you want to know my bracket predictions, because I did participate in the bracket prediction challenge, which ideally I don't win because that would just feel very like, you know, there's like a reason when radio contests go around, like you can't be an employee of the station and whatever. Yeah, that's kind of the same thing here, I would think. I mean, if they want to give me a phone, that's cool too, but I think I'd make them choose someone else. But I chose Byeonin first, which I kind of regret, by the way, Patience second, and then Solar third, and Bly fourth. But Bly certainly was a surprise in the quarterfinals, 3-0ing Neeb, so he could surprise us versus Byeon today. But I think it's going to be a very tough challenge, as Byeon looks basically unbeatable versus Zerg. Neeb could be beat occasionally by Zerg. You know, there's a difference there. But we will see in a couple of hours, actually, as that is the second semifinal being played today. And I'm going to quickly check over the chat, make sure that everything's all Gucci with the sound, and it seems like it is. Maybe the StarCraft 2 sound has to be increased a little bit. You guys let me know, as always, and I'll try and pay attention to chat, as well as the NSL and the Afrika, actually it's not on Afrika, the GSL Rudor matches, because I am great at multitasking, as everyone knows from my concept fighting in chat. Yep. Well, one important thing to note, I guess, as this does look like a fairly typical ZVP, we do have the gold base taken, and actually really quickly, as you can see, that's his natural. It's a second base, not his third base, or, you know, sometimes even waiting until the fourth base can be common for Zerg on this map. But there is definitely something to be said about taking a risky base as early as possible, because, I mean, the logic there is kind of... the earlier I take it, the less chance that they're already going to be able to counter it, you know, unless they coincidentally went for a counter build. And by the time they do make something to try and deal with it, like even a couple of adepts, I'll probably have already, you know, A, gained a lot of resources from it, and B, will be able to defend it, which of course is the most important. Plus, you gotta consider the travel time on Apotheosis specifically. Adepts, they shade, right? So they're not like the slowest things in the world to get across a map, but it is still something that you gotta micro a little bit, and it's still a long ways to go, so there definitely should be defenses at the gold base. Oh, looks like finally someone was able to delete that command. Thanks, Amish. And thanks to our first resub of the day, OFU, who's had so many name changes, but ultimately boils down to the same idea, for the 7-month resub. Very much appreciated. What was that? That was, I think... Was that a Zergling? I guess the Adept took on the Zergling. Kind of looks like the Probe did, but... not actually the case. Kush King 1387, also thank you for the 7-month resub. Love ZG and Riff King. Oh, uses a recall to get his Adept saved. Seems like a... I guess arguably a waste of 50 energy, but I mean, maybe he won't need an additional 50 energy. It's kind of questionable to do that, as, you know, there are actually a couple of lings here, but it's not an all-in, so I think ultimately it's not that big of a deal. He still has one photon overcharge if necessary, and Solar did not have the Baneliness already done. He does, and he sees that there's so few units and just few defenses in general. I mean, maybe you go for the all-in, but that would have been a pretty early Baneling Nest to have that choice. This one, you know, could still lead to something that is very aggressive on the third base that Patience is probably going to get from Solar's point of view, but I mean, I guess it's going to be the third base too, the gold base rather. But it could also just be used defensively, you know, in case Patience throws out whatever adepts he has, which is a very common tactic, of course, to have that initial defense. Let's get a quick look at the, I guess, overall game plan here from Patience. It's really nothing out of the ordinary. You know, you got 2 gateways. I mean, it is 4 gateways instead of 3, which is a little more aggressive, and this third base is increasingly looking like a fake. That's kind of what I was like, you know, to Solar it might look like he wants to take a third base, but his Overlord was over this. Twilight Council Robo was not, like, too surprising, but 2 gateways plus 2, you do the math, you realize that's 1 more gateway than absolutely necessary for an expand build. And maybe Solar is like, okay, I see you maybe taking a third base, and he does lose most of his lings in the process of doing that, but maybe I'm being deceived. He should have that kind of like, I don't know, going on in his mind right now until he can confirm that there's 3 other gateways, and that it really is quite dedicated, so he has no idea right now. Unfortunately, the Overlord that got this Great Scout over here was the one that would usually be over here, waiting for the suicide. But it looks like it still will be a third base, but I don't know how much probing will go on for this third base. You know, he's at 45 probes. He's not making any right now, but that could just be attributed to the fact that he is already, like, maxed out saturation on 2 bases, and you can kind of wait a while before you start producing probes again, but I feel like that would be soon. And no matter what, this is more gateways than necessary for just a defensive macro build, so it is going to be some aggression. It is a matter of just, like, how committed and how all-in is this. I talked a lot about Patience, though, so let's look back at the Zerg's base. Of course, the third, the natural, actually, has been the gold, so, I mean, Solar's been mining for quite some time. Look at this income graph, right? So he should have this big burst of units, just enough larva, it looks like, to mostly spend his money. Yeah, so that's all well and good, and the fourth base is on the way with any extra money he had, but the competition is going to be Baneling, Ling, Hydralisk, and I feel like that could do very well against Patience's army. You know, you look at this and it was like, it was a Bane Rain, oh my god, like all this army is dead, right? But the force fields are going to complicate matters. Time Warp actually goes down, which I don't mind at all. These are already slow Banelings, and while that could have been a recall in a very hairy scenario, I feel like Patience was definitely hoping that his force field would be on point. They miss by like a second, so he loses, I think, a few too many adepts and sentries to really be perfect, but his army is still okay looking. He does need to warp in more sentries as most of his force fields are gone, but once he breaks the back of this base, it's really easy to break the rest, I suppose you can say, because they can be used as a force fields, additional force field itself, you know, kind of that overgrowth problem, as well as force fielding, of course, this off. But you know, the gold base was used. It gave Solar this really big, you know, income advantage. And he does have this other base that I think he already, like, transferred his drones to, because he's still at 61 drones. And that's not so bad. Recall that Patience took a long time to even start producing more probes. He was at 45, only made 6 more. And is making more now, but actually it's a scenario where he's, like, mining out, so maybe he doesn't necessarily need to. A little bit more, I suppose. But the attack does retreats for now that are safe and sorry. I mean, getting that base and what was a good chunk of units is, I think, a worthwhile attack for what he gave up, which was not the most. You know, like, there's definitely, like, 2 base all-ins, right, are definitely more dedicated than what was a third base that wasn't mining quite yet. But, you know, for instance, Patience doesn't have any upgrades. He's only just now getting Blink. And, you know, not really any immortals anymore. And oh my god, look at this. The force fields were already pretty low, and then Solar had this huge surround anyway. Oh god, and Solar just demolishes Patience's army. And Patience just simply wasn't expecting the back attack. There was a bit of a drop here. I guess this is where that one immortal went to. It can't help that much, and the Warprism does want to live, because he just lost the majority of his army, and if he hopes to rebuild it, which he does have an economy to do so, he's gonna need some time. That's where Apotheosis being a long map can come into play, and that's where the Warp Prism can come back into play. And Solar did lose a good chunk of drones to that harassment. Okay, 7. I guess he also built a couple of extra structures, because I was like, wasn't he at 61? But, whatever. Point is, he's back down to 52, and maybe he wants to produce a few more. Yeah, he's building 6 more. To resaturate that gold base, but Patience should have probably just left as soon as possible with all of his army instead of warping in here, I think is what he did. Because the Hydra just absolutely slaughtering the rest. And he needs to start bulking up units. He goes for the Dark Shrine, which, you know, he already had pretty easy access to, so it makes sense. But was it scouted? No, funnily enough. I mean, the Overseer got in there, but didn't go over to check. Looks like the War Prism died, and so does the Immortal. That's disappointing. And Overseer is with the army, so there won't be any emergency DT defense. But, I mean, even if there was, I think that Solar just backs off for like a second and then comes back in with an Overseer. This does mean that there's a detection for the bases, and Solar has a tough decision right now. He could try and pull back and save his bases and his drones, or he could just all in here. There's no sentries, there's no splash. It really should just be a numbers game that while Solar takes a lot of damage back at home, he just ultimately wins on the front line, and Patience sees that too, and taps out. GG. Solar takes the first game. It is a best of 7 though, so it's still a long ways to go. Thanks to Gleburp for the 8-month resub. ZG, Riff, your consistency is impressive. Thank you.
Receiving incoming transmission.
Rifkin donated $5. My friend David was a victim of ID theft. Now I just call him Dav. That does seem like a Rifkin thing to say, I'm not gonna lie. Of course, he was awake to put the bot up, but I don't know. I don't know what else. I figured he just went right back to sleep after that. Next map's going to be on King Sejong. To give a brief overview, I suppose, of the entire map order, it's going to be Apotheosis, Sejong, Frost, Dasan as 4th, Frozen Temple, New Gettysburg, and Galactic Process as the last map. No vetoes because it's the best of 7. Let's get this next game going. Just quickly checking to see what it says about audio. Seems like no one's complaining, so I'm assuming that's alright. Oh, looks like people are starting to get their giveaway prizes, and hopefully their Partouf soon as well. And they are ready. Bing, bang, boom. King Sejong Station. To give you a plan, I guess, for taking your breaks or swapping over to the other screen to watch the multiple other events going on, I think the plan right now is to go for every 2 games, there to be a 2-minute break. And then I think after game 5, should it go to game 5, there'll be a bit longer of a break to fit in a bunch of different stuff. Because we got a lot of information to give to you about Ting. It's actually been quite a while since we did a Ting match, just because so many things have gone on. It's actually been much longer than originally planned. I mean, we have graphics from way back when it was like supposed to be like a 2-month thing, and it was not a 2-month thing. But that's great as long as we get the word out there that Ting is this great service for you as customers, and that these matches are awesome, is basically what it all boils down to. So, but let's do the intros. In the top left, now down 1, he is the pink Protoss Patience. And in the bottom right, as the blue Zerg, he is Solar. This was Patience's map choice. Of course, the lack of vetoes really makes this quite an interesting series. As I said, Dasan is like 4th, which seems pretty odd, but it is like... I don't know how much of like actual like, let's call it like Death Note thinking, right? If you guys ever read Death Note, there's like always the interactions between L and Light, or whatever his name is, in their heads, where they're like, if he did A, then it must be B, but if he thought that A was B, then also C could happen, but if he thought the same exact thing, then it's also like F could happen. Like, I doubt that much planning goes into the map choices, but there's probably some consideration that there's like, you know, that 1 second you're like, do I want to have Dasan Station as a potential ace match? Not really. of course, there's always the hope that you don't go to the ace match, and thus don't have to play it, but I gotta imagine that is some consideration. And since best of sevens are mostly held to the finals, there's been a lot of conversation about how, you know, for instance, potentially BlizzCon finals and final match could be on Dasson, and that's silly. That's all true, but this is the semifinals, which makes it, I guess, almost like a test run for those type of finals, because not many people get to the finals. Not many people get to the semifinals, right? It's top 4, top 2, but it is going to be maybe like the only time they're going to experiment with it for a lot of different tournaments that they play in. Especially the Koreans only get so many tournaments to get first place or second place in. It's going to be one of the few where they have to play all 7 maps. No vetoes are ever an option. And anyway, Stargate opener here, coming out from Patience. Not too surprising, especially on King Sejong. I feel it's a pretty popular opener. I mean, King Sejong's been in the map pool for some time now. That's interesting. And it just always felt like a Stargate map anyways. I mean, even back when it was Heart of the Swarm. And Stargate openers are pretty damn solid openers, so. There are definitely Protosses that have just gone completely away with Stargates, like they are all Toilet Council or nothing, but there's a lot of different options, or, well, there's different options for Protosses to open up with. I think the variety of openers might still kind of be in favor of Zerg, but Protoss has their own mixed bag. Who's solo cast? Is he a new caster? Yes, and he's doing an amazing job. Yeah, solar participation is happening right now in front of your eyes. I know, it's a beautiful thing, isn't it? Technology, am I right? At this adept, I guess, that was over here was searching for a specific, just, hold of the Lings. A very common, very, you know, something that you should be practicing, thing to do in any matchup, actually, as a Zerg player. Maybe not so much CVZ, I'm not even sure about that, but versus Terran versus Protoss is to have like 7, 8 Lings over here waiting for either to jump on the third base or to, for instance, catch the Terran while he's moving out. Like, that is a very annoying thing to deal with, and oftentimes not checked, even by a lot of the pros. So just having it over there could have helped. It didn't really catch anything, but it's always a possibility that Solar was waiting. Unfortunately, with Overlord speed, this Overlord will still die, but maybe hoping that it could have... It's very slowly dying. There we go. It could have gotten a scout. That wasn't going to happen. What has Solar scouted so far? Just the front, and that there's a third base on the way. So this third base, you know... Excuse me, obviously quicker than the last one. That last one was like... Yeah, you could have convinced me that you were just being a little more hesitant to take a third base, but seeing the 4 gateways was a bit more of a tell, really, and Solar doesn't have the same luxury of scouting quite yet. With Overlord speed, before there's enough Phoenixes, he probably he definitely could have tried to focus on getting a scout, but as it is Phoenixes with a third base, that's kind of all the scouting you already need. Any fake, you know, macro opener with Phoenixes, that kind of died with Heart of the Swarm. And it was a really cool all-in back in the day, but it isn't really used that much anymore. And then to afford a third base that isn't canceled, which I believe he saw this one wasn't, is, well, technically I guess it could have been canceled, but yeah, it's not very likely. So Solar probably feels very comfortable droning up. He's already at 70 drones, 3 bases, so yeah, I would say so. Hydralist in on the way. And an upgrade as well. A little bit of a scuffle here, that's the most important thing. Yeah, I know, it's such a weeb bringing up, like, anime and manga. That was back when I really was a weeaboo too, by the way, so... It wasn't just Death Note that I was reading, but that was the one that I finished. Despite what turned into just... more and more of those scenarios, it just got silly after a while. It was like, okay, they can't actually predict A through Z. Like, this is dumb, but whatever. Phoenixes have been doing a pretty decent job, by the way, just kind of highlighting on the screen a little bit so that they've constantly been moving around. They're alive, which is, you know, usually the first and foremost thing to watch out for. And they're also getting some scouting with, you know, a couple of queens, a couple of overlords, whatnot. And I guess when they can't scout, a hallucinated Phoenix can always scout, which is great. Does want to see what the composition looks like exactly. Last game we had a couple of banelings, you know, rolled into the composition, literally rolling. And this game, not so much. It is just Ling Hydralisk. It's so many Hydralisks, though. I mean, Solar's really getting quite a lot. That I think Patience should be scared right now. You know, he sees a 4th base, right? But when you gave Solar so much availability to macro by going for your opener, it's always like, okay, well, they're probably already at 70 drones, and this is going to get transferred to later. And they're building an army. They're not doing that half and half type thing. So there's going to be all army all the time. Oh, okay, 4 more drones. My bad. But that's actually a lot of drones, 72. But point is, there's a very big Hydralisk army. Lurkden is on the way. I mean, that was not the fastest Lurkden we've ever seen. Certainly a lot of other Zergs go for, like, really fast Lurkdens, but going up this ramp without too much scouting going on first is a little bit questionable. You look at Patience's army, and it's not exactly the best anti-Hydralisk force. Not a lot of adepts, just the Immortals and Sentries, and just generally not a very big army, but the force fields, you know, helped a lot, and the Immortals, they do still have damage. Not like a literal counter to Hydralisk, but they have that damage and the survivability too, even if they were being attacked. They weren't. This Ling attack over here has been going on for like a minute, but as you can see, it was kind of attacking unimportant things. Not too much to highlight. It's always nice when Zergs try and multi-prong attack. That's kind of their thing, but that one not really working out. Patience has been on top of protecting his 3rd base and has some SimCity too to really help it out. So he can focus entirely on the main army. Now, here we see a Spire kind of tagging along with their Lurker Den, and it seems to be a lot more Koreans do this than Europeans, for sure. I feel like North Americans almost always try and copy Koreans, and Europeans kind of like stick to their own thing, but that's neither here nor there. But the transfer over to Aspire is something that for a very long time, I mean, I'm talking all of StarCraft 2, so like basically 6 years, Surprise Spire versus Protoss was deadly. It was especially deadly in Heart of the Swarm because of the upgrade Mutalisk got with their generation, but it's always been very scary. It kind of has died down, you know. I think a combination of just Protoss getting better and, you know, other options being available, like Roach Ravager all-ins and Hydralisk and Lurkers, and the fact that most Protosses were opening with a Stargate anyways. So all those kind of, like, led to this, okay, maybe we should stop going for Mutalisk. But, you know, for instance, Rogue, who didn't make it here, by the way, after winning last season, he very consistently went for a Muta transition, like every single game he played versus Protoss, and that ended up working. I think that's how he got to the, well, that's how he won like his first match, I think, and then he lost the decider. But anyways, that is an option. And we do see him upgrading the +1, but this also could be for Corruptors, for instance, you know, sniping off Observers, because the Lurkers used to be a very, like, you know, well, this is going to be the new way to play, just always snipe the detection, and then Oracles came back, right? But now it is going to be Mutalisk. Keep in mind that while the Phoenix's numbers, you know, there's still 4 of them, it's off of 1 Stargate, and what you really have to do if you're going to go for a Muta transition is like actually go for one, you know, none of this like, oh, I'm gonna get 10 and see how it works. Like, no, you really have to go quite all in with this, which can oftentimes, like, you know, lose you 2 bases, maybe even force a base trade, but that's ideally where the Lurkers are buying just enough time. So unfortunately, Patience, I don't think, is anticipating this transition yet. Doesn't have a ton of scouting and really can't after a certain point, you know, but at least he canceled this base. I think some adepts got over here, so didn't you see the Spire? You did see the Spire, but like I was talking about, that could have been for Corruptors, and that also could have been for, you know, maybe the Hive's already done, maybe he's gonna go for Broodlords, but if he thought it was from Mutalisk, then there should have been a second Stargate and a Fleet Beacon put down almost immediately, because relying purely on Blink Stalker, which he doesn't even have, is not the most reliable answer to mass Mutalisk. And it's actually going to be a couple of storms that scare away the initial ball, but this is, you know, recall all the times to any other, you know, base trade scenario with mass Mutalisk, that was all Heart of the Swarm. That's all Shadong ever did for a very long time. It's not the initial Mutalisk that's scary, it's the 30 plus Mutalisk later on. It's the Lings getting in here and forcing that base trade, and base trade is going to be, remember these Stalkers do not have Blink, so they can't chase the Mutas and they can't micro against the Mutas either. Solar just goes in and takes the engagement, and Patience realizes there's nothing he could really do. GG. Solar takes it 2-0. Now it's going to be first to 5, that's how a best of 7 works. Or first to 4, because I can count. I'm great at this, don't worry about it. But that's a pretty strong lead for Solar already. I did already tell you guys it's gonna be breaks about every 2 games, so that I'm gonna stick to it, and we'll keep it going like that. But you're not missing much anyways, just usually the lobby making, and it's not gonna take that long, so don't freak out, everyone. But we'll see you in 2 minutes. You do live in the US. Sorry about that. Took a tiniest bit longer, as Solar and I both needed a bathroom break. So let's turn back on the StarCraft music. There we go. And also let's go to the correct in-game screen. Nailed it. I thumbs up as I went to the in-game screen because I'm amazing. Woolander, thank you for the 8-month resub. Let's get into Frost. There we go. In the top left, he's up 2-0. It is the blue Zerg Solar. In the top right, as the pink Protoss, he is Patience. And not doing so hot, you know, versus Solar. Weird. Yeah, so I guess the Ting ads, man, I swear to God, I guess it's something to do with the fact that they don't output to me, they output straight to stream, so I kind of like try and look at the levels compared to what StarCraft, for instance, has an output on for the output audio, and that's usually below the halfway mark, for instance, on OBS. Same thing, supposedly, for the Ting ads, except I'm being told they're super quiet, so that's... It never works. Never works. Never lucky. Feels bad. But anyways, I'll get that changed up so you can actually hear what they're talking about, which would be great. Does this make me worried that the in-game sounds for StarCraft also aren't loud? But no one's freaking out about that either. So, you guys always differing opinions. I swear to God, just be a collective already. Have one mind, Twitch mind, and all agree on something. I swear. Anyway, if you didn't hear and you don't know, Ting is a mobile phone service company for the US specifically. So those ads just really quickly went over how to check compatibility with your phone, as well as talking about the new data plan. So exclamation point data, however you want to pronounce it, but spelled the same way. To learn more about the reduced rates, which is really what we're trying to highlight, especially this weekend as we watch these awesome games. And it is Frost, and I just started things off by saying Patience isn't looking so hot. Of course, he's down 2-0, as you can see on the scoreboard. And that's, you know, usually not very good. 2-0 is that point, though, where you're still like, eh, okay, I tried 1 or 2 things, and it didn't work out, but I have, you know, another 2 games at least to go fall back on. It's when it's a 3-0 that you really are gonna think, just start talking about mental issues, you know, confidence issues, and can they bring it back from that mindset, much less, you know, actually adapt to whatever they're losing against, which right now is just Solar. You know, it's not that Solar is going for two base all-ins or 3 base all-ins with no drones on 3rd base, whatever you want to call it, and Patience can't deal with that. It's been 2 different macro games that Patience just hasn't, you know, 100% done well with. Because it's not a stomp. That first game actually looked a little, you know, bit scary for Solar because he did lose that 3rd gold base, plus the army that he did, and Patience was able to get out of there. You were thinking, I was thinking that he, you know, okay, he can definitely recover from this, and then Ethiopia's army. Second game, that really does just kind of boil down to what can happen in any game, which is lack of scouting or tunnel vision, more importantly, because he did scout the spire, but then I guess wasn't actually checking or thinking about a mutagen. And that is something that it sucks, you know. You could be tilted by that, but you could also just be like, oh well, next game I'll make sure to scout and consider this, because he had the options to fight against it. You know, he had a good economy with what was a pretty normal third base like this one is, and he had a Stargate, but he just didn't use them. Also, not having Blink in general is also, I think, quite painful. But we'll see if he gets it here. I feel like we do see more and more Blink, you know, as styles become different for each player. No one's 100% agreeing that one thing is better than the other, and just the mobility that Blink can give and the different playstyle Blink can give. I feel like I am seeing a lot more, and definitely I see it a lot more as like, okay, maybe I don't need it, but I'm gonna get it anyways. And sometimes, yeah, fully transitioning to Blink Stalker army. You know, that all different types of ways to get there, but the point is having it, and Patience just didn't have it. Instead going for Storm, which is an interesting decision, but you know, mind you, had there not been Meatless, Storm would have been great against what was mostly a Hydra army. Oh well. That is quite a few roaches. I guess, you know, I swear to God, it's usually this and these positions down here, but still, top horizontal positions are horizontal positions, and that's going to give a much reduced time between, especially the third bases, for both players, so it really is going to favor whoever is more aggressive. Luckily, these lanes do not get in here. That would have been a terrible start for Patience. But if Patience, you know, had done like an Adept all-in, his Adept only had to shade, you know, kind of once, and then, again, as they get into all three mineral lines, but that's not a very long travel time. For Zerg, Roach Ravager laying all in, instantly over here. You can turn the Ravagers in at your home, too, and they have that built-in speed. It's a pretty damn good build, and certainly one we see, I think, like 75% or more of the these spawn positions specifically on Frost. So, Patience, he shouldn't be, you know, this shouldn't be new to him, but can he defend it? Is still up in the air. Warp Prism comes out. It's going to help micro maybe the sentries a little bit. A couple of Lings do get through, but already Lings getting in because the Overlord drop went ahead and didn't have anything to counter it. So 15 probes, I mean, even 20 probes, alright? He's going to lose about 20 probes here, 20 exactly. That can still be okay as long as he doesn't lose the army, but oh my god, almost taking corrosive bioshots. Actually, one of them killing his own Ravager. That's a little awkward. And then the rest, oh, those are the ones that got the sentries. That's not supposed to happen. The sentries are out of force fields, yeah, but that they still weren't supposed to die. You know, it still provides some DPS. This could have been a much bigger army had he avoided those. And now it's not much of one, but 27 probes have now gone down. This is still something that Patience had. He had an army to take down Solars he could probably recover from, and he is starting to, but this should have probably stopped at 20 probes killed and probably a few sentries left to live. And instead, everything kind of went topsy-turvy. Solar is starting to macro a little bit out of this. He is building drones again. He's getting a lair. The Warp Prism could provide a lot of counterattack potential, but more probes are going down in that third base now as he has not quite cleaned all of this up, and he is really getting quite far behind on that work accounts. Because Solar was behind, well, not behind, but he was down in workers for quite a long time to do this build. He's only just been getting up to the 50s, but Patience, he was at such a good probe count to begin with, not so much now, so he's got to go back into chrono boosting his Nexus. He's got to give up a couple of things to do so, so that includes warp-ins, that includes, you know, upgrades with a forge. And it's not looking great for Patience. I'll see how he can recover. Solar isn't exactly in this, like, so totally unbeatable position quite yet either. As, again, he only just getting up to 60 drones, and really no upgrades for his roaches, and only roaches, which, you know, aren't the best units in the world. Immortals could counter them. Although if they turn into Ravagers, they're, you know, just the tiniest bit better. But it is an army that, you know, one bad engagement into force fields and Immortals, you can actually start taking back a fight. But there's not much of an army for Patience right now, as he is going pretty dedicated into his probe production. Fortunately, he has to warp in here. to save his probes from Ling harassment. Solar is not really playing this long, drawn-out game behind with that all-in. He got his macro going, and he doesn't need Hydralisk to end the game. He doesn't need to wait for a Lurker Den to end the game, although that could have been an option, just extending your lead. Following up with another big attack will probably win in the game, too. Oh no, Patience, pay attention! Oh, Jesus. Well, that's a 3-0 for Solar, and that's where things are just... that's where it's really hard to come back. Actually, it's gonna be really awkward if Patience gets 4-0'd here, because I told Beyond and Bly to probably be around at like 11 p.m. KST, which is in an hour and 15 minutes. So... yeah. Also, because it is a 3-0, I want to get an add-in. So apologies for, I guess, barraging, braiding you with ads. But it would really suck if this is a 4-0 for Patience. So see you guys in 2 minutes while I get the lobby set up. You do live in the US. Welcome back. Thanks for watching those ads. Again, sorry, but things are actually about to get a little bit awkward here, especially since Patience says, I think... well, he at least logged out of the chat channel, but... hopefully he remembers that it is a best of 7 and a best of 5, considering that he did choose all the maps. Be a little awkward. Gonna try and... try and get him back once it's, okay. I guess Patience went to... I guess another option was he could have just restarted his computer, which is hopefully what happened. I think also, besides just trying to lengthen the time of this best of 7, I'm not gonna, pull the wool over your eyes. That's exactly what I'm trying to do. It's also a good break for Patience, who has to kind of, get his minds together to bring it back from a 3-0. I mean, I can certainly see him, maybe taking 1 or 2 games, but to take it all back, from 4 games after this is very, very difficult to do. And maybe he's asking his teammates, or maybe he's just trying to relax, or maybe he just went to the bathroom. I have no idea, but hopefully he does come back. Patience, please, don't leave me. I would ask him on Skype, but if he rebooted, then... There you go. Oh, there he is. So yeah, rebooted, I guess. Why is everyone talking about my dating life? Aw, Flash vs. Bisu is happening. He did think it was a best of 5. That's a little awkward, but he comes back anyway. At least he didn't, log off and go to sleep. Because I was a little worried this would go into, say, if it went to 11:30 KST, then that would be maybe a little bit late, and they'd start to maybe get a little bit tired. Even that's not really that bad, though, right? But it's not even that time yet. It is just pretty early. Last map, potential last map, is going to be Dasan Station, and Patience did just remark in chat about how Zerg too strong. So I guess that wasn't his strong suit this last week. Like I said, Patience been doing a pretty decent job in the Korean leagues. Seems that at this point, though, everyone's kind of in one or the other. But not here. Of course, Patience has already won money, but we'll get into that after these introductions. So really quickly, in the middle top left on Dasan Station, up 3-0. He is the Blue Zerg, Samsung Galaxy's Solar. In the middle bottom right is the Pink Protoss. He is Patience. Dasan Station has lovely, lovely little you know, markers here. Because you can't even use a clock for this one. At least on Catalina, as awkward as it was to say, like, top middle-ish left, you could also say 11 o'clock. Nope, not on Dassan Station. Like, what is this? This is, like, the inner part of a clock at almost quite, what, like 4? I guess? You can't do this. That doesn't make any sense. Actually going for a Nexus first against, Hatchery first, so one of those... Yeah, I just really hope you're not going to cheese me because everyone cheeses, so let's assume that we both don't. That'd be great. And it works out favorably. Kind of for both parties, because Solar's also going to be able to get a gold base, where Patience really kind of has to take this base. The earlier aggressive defensive means, when you consider that Roaches and Ravages are pretty good, can sometimes be better for the Zerg. Sometimes, you know, Terran one base attacks or two base or whatever can look pretty good too, but Terran's not here! It's just CVP. I did want to talk about the prize pool though before we get too far into this game, although apparently it's going to be a macro game, so hey, there you go. But if you do go to Wikipedia, you can check out all the history of these players. It's been a very long tournament that's lasted past the 2 months that originally planned, so oh well. But we're here now. Patience, you know, he beats Soulkey, SOS Keen, I forget which of all of them, in the Korean group too, and then went ahead and beat Super and Alive for the group stage 2. I mean, there's a lot of 2s here, I know, but the point is, he's in the semifinals now after beating Nurchio 3-0, and Nurchio is not a bad Zerg player, we all know that, so to see Patience kind of just get reversed here, seriously, like, Zerg strikes back type deal is actually very surprising. But what does he win if he loses here, I guess is what I was really trying to get to. And the answer is not quite determined yet. We do have a best of 3 tomorrow morning to determine 3rd and 4th place. But if he gets 3rd, it's $600. If he gets 4th, it's $400 over the $200. Still some nice cash for him in his pocket. Solar, of course, would love to go on to bigger and better things and win, ideally, the 1st place prize, which is $2,000, or at least 2nd, which is $1,000. We have 3 bases for Solar now. Patience getting probes at his natural, and a Stargate opener as well. He tried to hide it. I think he knew where the Overlord went, so he kind of put it on the opposite side, but Overlord still got in far enough. Did supply block Solar for about a second. Sees the Oracle, but this is something that is not meant to surprise necessarily. It's great if it does, if you do get those 8 probe kill or drone kills, because they had no idea it was happening, but usually not too expected. That was the bigger question, of course. Did Solar see the Stargate? So I'm guessing Patience threw the Stargate down right after he knew the Overlord was out of sight. So that's pretty cool. Double Stargate opener. Sometimes you see this both at the same time, and then you do sometimes see it staggered a little bit as they try and hide the build a little bit. So the amount of Phoenixes that you can get from this is kind of unlimited, really, depending on how you want to play. There are some builds that go, like, into seriously mass Phoenix, 20 even, like, that's pretty extreme, but, like, 15, and then in a Tempests, you know, we try to see that type of style played on Ruins of Endion, back when that was in the map pool, but it's one that's fallen out of favor, I think. More so just the Phoenix numbers getting really high and then back into ground is what we're seeing nowadays. But the Lings were not supposed to get in here. The Oracle was trying to kill drones on the side of the map, so did have to come back to help. I don't think he got that many drones. Yeah, she has a womanly voice. 3 drones, and then had to come back to deal with the Lings. And okay, they didn't do a lot of damage, but they did get the scout off on those double Stargates, and now Lings are going into the natural base, and Solar just, I don't know, man, he has Patience's number here, and it's really feeling like a 4-0. I mean, or, yeah, 4-0. I'm great with numbers today. Thanks, Higgins, for the 15-month resub. He says, yay me, and then goes, bleh. It's always the sound I think the tongue emote makes. Anyway. The problem is not losing probes, although that is becoming an even bigger problem right now. It's that the momentum I think that a Stargate, double Stargate opener really needs is cut here. Like, yeah, he's still producing Phoenix, he can still afford Phoenix. Oh, still doesn't wall this off, though. But This is something that, like, ideally, you're not being touched at all back at home. Like, you're just doing your thing with the Phoenixes while getting a third base, and then you can transition to the macro game on the ground perfectly fine. But the fact that he has to deal with everything, it's messing up his macro in a, you know, literal sense, like killing his probes as well as probably him messing up his macro every now and then, is really going to start to add up here. And Patience, you know, this is a case where instead of dealing with Lings, he's getting even more drones than what he's getting right here. And he should be getting a lot because Solar... Oh, did Solar just... No, he just has Spore Crawler, though. The Overlord is hiding it. But some good control here. And honestly, one Spore Crawler against double Stargate Phoenix doesn't usually cut it. I mean, 9's kind of low, to be honest. We do see, I think, more in the likes of 12 to 15 Phoenixes before they really go back into double Robo and whatnot. But Patience, he's lost 8 probes, he's had to take him off of mining, he's about to lose his Phoenix, which are so important in the target fire from Solar on the low ones too. He gets 3 Phoenix, oh god. But yeah, Patience I think would have already wanted to be on a third base. I'm not sure where he would have taken the third base, to be honest. I still don't know where to take it on this map, but somewhere. And already on his way to, you know, Resonant Enclaves, Blink, Double Immortals, like whatever he wanted. And unfortunately he's still stuck on double Stargate, which... for a time is perfectly fine, but not forever. Hydralisk number is really getting too high. I mean, seriously, like, Phoenix double Stargate openers can look almost overpowered in the right hands, in the right situation. You know, the underestimating from the Zerg happens, and then they think Hydras will cut it, and they don't, because there's not enough Hydralisk. And then they think, okay, I'm in a macro game, and I got Lurkers, and the Phoenixes come back, and they pick out the Lurkers. Like, they can be very useful tools, but... Patience just had to deal with so much shit here. Just straight up. He's still trying to stick in the game, but this is almost 8 minutes now, and he's only just starting his third base. It's going to be down here, which actually, maybe before these rocks were implemented was fine, but with the rocks being broken down now, I don't think is a fine third base. Because before these rocks existed, it was breaking down these rocks, which still was a lengthy time from here to here. And even then, that's still kind of questionable if you want to focus your attention over here. But now it's a distance of here to here, and all your reinforcements are coming pretty quickly too for the Zerg. So I don't think I like that base. But you know what base is exactly better? I'm not quite sure. Things have to be very, very careful. This base, it's, you know, kind of same deal. This base to this base. You take this base, they do still have this opening. I feel like I would like this base better, though. I don't know. Point is, some base has got to get up here, and it's already a little bit late, so that kind of sucks. Resonating Glaives, a lot of Adepts can do okay against Hydras. They can't do that well against Banelings. Splits and Force Fields can sometimes make Adepts, you know, look like they counter Banelings, you know, in the super right hands and the super right scenario, but generally... mass Banelings versus mass Adept is going to be better looking for the mass Banelings, especially when they're backed up with so many numbers that Solar does have. Solar has numbers on his side. 30-40 army supply difference with, again, Force Fields and Immortals or Disruptors, and I'm like, okay, I think Patience can do this, but he has no splash, only just now getting a couple of sentries. Really not the most defensive third base you've ever seen. Force Fields ended up being pretty good, so that he can kind of take out the Banelings one at a time. Didn't lose all of his Adepts at once, but he knows, I think, that this is almost an impossible hold. It's got to be the best damn hold he's ever made. Photon Overtur's already used. Trying to split his Adepts at the last seconds. Doesn't quite work out. And again, it's really coming down to numbers. Phoenix is trying to help out by picking everything up that they can. And with a better start to this game, Patience probably has enough to hold on there. But unfortunately, those Lings were quite the pain. Thanks to Anubis X Hades for the 21-month 3-sub. Almost 2 years. You rock, mates. No, you rock, mate. Thanks to the resub. So like I mentioned, that does put us in a little bit of an awkward situation where I have to go try and find Byun and Bly. They should both be awake, which is the good news. So they might be able to respond and get on and hop on really quickly, but this does mean that we're going to go to an extended break, which the plan was anyways, but maybe even a bit longer after that, because I am solo casting and I need to keep my voice relatively healthy for the weekend. As tomorrow should be, I think, a longer day. Both a pretty good best of 9. But congratulations to Solar, who will move on to the finals match. Patience will still have to play his 3rd place match against whoever loses in the next semifinal. But that next semifinal, if I had to guess, if you want to time out your break, guess about 10-15 minutes before you see my face on screen at the very least. And that might not even be the semifinals, but definitely pay attention to Twitter. But once again, this is all thanks to Ting, so just go look down below on this screen right here. bttv.ting.com is the place to go if you're at all interested in what Ting offers. It is for US residents only, and it is a Ting, or it is a mobile phone service company. Exclamation point data will tell you a bit about their new data rates, if that was what was kind of holding you back before. You know, if you've been watching the Ting seasons, both 1 and 2 for the last 8 months, and you're like, you know, I still use a bit of data, check out the new rates, and that might appeal a little bit more to you. And as always, I guess, because we haven't talked about it in a while, 40 Ting signups, and just people buying stuff from the Ting website from BTTV is our goal here. We have a goal for Season 3, and it'd be awesome to have a Season 3 and have Ting go out the entire year, basically. It would be the most ideal thing ever, but we do need your help to do that. But of course, more importantly, you need to be interested in their product. It's kind of our job to get you there, and then their job to sell you on what they do. So with all that said and done, I'll let the videos do a bit more interesting tidbits about Ting and then go into some brief commercials. So thanks for watching, everyone, and please continue to pay attention as we get the next semifinal set up. Oh, really quickly, thanks to Montecore for the 25-month resub. BaseTradeTV, thank you. Now into the video.